My name's Steve Swatton. I'm the CEO of CopperCorp. We're a TSX listed company. I have 66 million shares out. And we have two properties in Tasmania. And one of them is an IOCG, and the other one is possibly a porphyry stroke IOCG type scenario. And we've now completed over 6,000 meters of a 10,000 meter drill program. And we plan to continue drilling next year. And we've so far had reasonable intersections with a number of holes, and I'd like to talk to you about it today.
Hello.
Hello.
We've never met in person, have we?
No.
Hello. Hello, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, so Taz where? Where's that?
Yes, we often get mistaken for Tanzania, but Tasmania.
So you're not in Africa then?
No, we're clearly in South Australia, and it's an interesting country. I mean, can I do that again?
No, carry on. It is an interesting country because, like I'm joking. I was born in Australia, so I know where it is. But that's the first hurdle you've got to get over. Is like, where is this place you talk of?
Absolutely,
and it's an amazing country.
In North America, they do not know where Tasmania is. They think it's a separate country altogether. That's why I was sort of joking there. They do. They don't understand what it is, where it is, and the only thing they've ever seen is maybe some of the great nature programs that you have. So it's the first hurdle we have to get across, particularly with North American. Yeah. Okay, you go elsewhere, UK, you go to Australia, of course, they all know it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, because you've got New Zealand down there, which I think most of North Americans have heard of. I'd like to think they have, please. And Australia, which they've definitely heard of, great mining jurisdiction. So are there other mining companies there, or is it completely?
No. There's 8 operating mines in Tasmania. In this northwestern part of Tasmania, which is about 50 square kilometres, there's 8 operating mines. There's a gold mine, there's a Renison tin mine, there's the Rosebery multi-commodity base metal mine, Henty. They've got 6 or 7 mines. One new one that's just come on production, Avery nickel mine. Yeah. So and we're right next to this Avery nickel mine. So everybody's either indirectly or directly related to the mining industry in this small part of northwest Tasmania. Yeah, okay. I want to talk to you about, obviously you were over here in the UK, you were at the Mines and Money show, meeting investors, telling the story. It's a relatively new story. We have spoken once online about it. 6,000 meters, I didn't realize you'd done that much. So can you tell me how much you allocated to each project? I just want to know what we... In terms of cash?
Yeah,
or
cash
at the moment,
meters.
We're spending, we've raised over 10 million, 12 million. We've now 7 million in the bank, and we spent roughly 2.5 on one and just 500,000 on the other one. Okay. The rest of it is in legal and operating fees.
The grades seem, looking at the headlines anyway, the grades seem quite good, but can you give us a sense of what the ore body's like and perhaps what you knew before you kind of walked in there?
Well, it was actually discovered by CRA. It's been drilled in the past by a company called Stellar Resources. And Stellar actually then refocused into the tin industry. And so we picked up the property 3 years ago. It was in a private company called Georgina. Georgina became CopperCorp, and we IPO'd in January. And the whole premise behind this is a regional play. This is an area play. We've taken 1,400 square kilometers of ground. And within this, there are multiple different copper and gold showings. And it was predicated on an ex-Ivanhoe geologist who visited a local mine called Savage River, which is 600 million tons of iron ore. And it's not dissimilar from something I've previously worked on in northern Sweden called Kiruna. And so we both recognize that this has some potential for IOCGs. And sure enough, I mean, it does have some analogies to IOCGs, but we're still early days. But the mineralisation is roughly 0.5% to 1% material. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is develop out a known lithological. We've got 3 lithological units with higher grade copper. Yeah. And it's the upper hanging wall that seems to have it. And interesting enough, it's increasing grade going down dip. Okay,
talk about IOCG, iron ore, copper, gold, and the context of why that is important, if you don't mind, because some people won't understand the terminology.
Well, the reason why it's important is because some of the largest mines in the world are IOCGs, and probably the most famous one would be Olympic Dam, but Candelaria in Chile is also another famous one. There's numerous of them around the world in places like Mongolia, Carajás district of Brazil, even the one I just mentioned, Kiruna in northern Sweden. So even when I was at university many years ago, there wasn't such a term for IOCG, but it's sort of a basket case for this sort of pull-apart type basin geology that is poorly understood. And actually, each IOCG is different from the next one. And ours, at the moment, has relatively limited gold, but it does have cobalt. And they're all different. And so you only kind of understand it when you've probably drilled about 100,000 meters. And as I say, we're only 6,000 meters into it. It's actually had 4,000 meters before. The best intersection before was 21 meters, 1%. And just for reference, that's not dissimilar to what the first holes were at Olympic Dam. And they actually discovered the ore body 22 kilometers away. So this is regional play. We're just getting into it. And look, it's a magnetic signature we're following, which goes on for tens of kilometers. And we've just homed in on the area that everybody knows there's some mineralization. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar, Matt, with that part of Tasmania, but it's extremely thick jungle. And it's not easy to get around. So it's very understandable as to why there hasn't been a lot of multiple discoveries in the area. The old timers did do a great job. Unfortunately, in the day when they were there, they used to burn the ground and do the work. So we're following up on a few of the old anomalies that they had, but of course they didn't have the beauty of having advanced geophysics that we have and geochemical techniques. They were just doing prospecting. And the local local Mount Lyell mine, which was discovered because it was a bald mountain at the time, is 3 million tons of contained copper. That, even by today's standards, would be considered a world-class deposit. And there's a company called New Century that's now bringing it into production again.
Okay, got to remember that name for a while. And let's talk about strategy, because it's explorers, or say, especially starting off, it's that whole cookie-cutter approach of raise some money, do some work, do a bit of drilling, raise some money, do some work, etc. Right? You're ex-BHP?
Yeah, ex-BHP.
Please, Dev?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So big boy territory, and then you're dropping down here into how do we kind of stay at the table, is the phrase I like to use. You've got to stay at the table and raise the money. So how you spend your money, where you spend your money, and what you're able to say as a result of spending that money, usually through the drill bit, is really important to the cost of the next raise for you. So 6,000 meters plus 4,000 meters that have been done previously, 7 million in the bank. What happens next year?
At the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to terminate the drilling at Alpine and review what we've got and where we're going to be drilling next, because the type of mineralization is such that we have about 10 kilometers of strike of similar types of rocks. So we're going to target other areas within that. But the second property I was telling you about, the Skyline, is Dora. It's called Dora, the actual prospect itself. It's never been drilled before. This is absolutely phenomenal because it was discovered in the 1930s. And it's totally different. We're not quite sure what it is. It's a unit called the Mount Reed Volcanics. And that is also the host of the Rosebery mine. So within this, we've taken some rock samples from previous trenching work that was done in the 1930s, and we have results from muck samples, which is a bunch of different rocks that were brought up, which is 20 grams gold, 2% copper, and multi-percent base metals. So we're not entirely sure what it is. So when you're talking about what we're going to do next, we're going to stop the drilling on the drill out of the resource that we think we have at Alpine, and then we're going to concentrate on the Dora in the interim. But then, look, it's tax loss selling in North America right now. You know the situation.
Yeah. So,
but other members of the board, we're fairly experienced, seasoned guys who kind of know the annual cycle of how it raised here. I think we've got something that is of interest, like you were mentioning. I was in BHP, of interest to a major. So it might well be that one of the majors might take part of the reason why we're here in London and other places. I've just come from Australia as well. Is we have actually come, first out, first blush, showing everybody what we have, and it have been well received by particularly the majors.
Explorer Dora, good. I'm also intrigued by how you kind of raise the flag and say, look, we're here. We've got some interesting showings here, and we're going to go through a process. So at least have us on your radar. I guess it's easy for you to kind of put in a few calls on that front. We are also seeing some of the majors, also the mid-caps as well, so moving a little bit further upstream towards the exploration side of things, something we haven't done for a long, long time. As big projects, higher grade projects are getting harder and harder to find, more costly to find. Do you think are you liking what you're seeing in the market in terms of these small budgets being issued by some of these majors? I think, Rio and BHP have actually got little programs in place. You're not putting your hand up for any of that, are you?
Look, I find it ironic that they're going back to what we used to do 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. And they're trying to entice the juniors to somehow sidle up to them. But I'm a little bit more wary of all of that type of approach. But I do think that if you have the endorsement of a major, like you just had another gentleman in before earlier, who got endorsement from Lucas or Lundin Group, yes, it does help, but you've got to be careful that you don't give away the baby with the bathwater on these things. So, I mean, on the one hand, you need them, but you don't need them too much at the early days in order to raise money, or else it becomes a little bit of a difficult ask when you're going out there, when you know that there's probably, if they have a right first refusal on your property, another major's not going to be interested. So.
But that's what I mean. It has been a difficult period for the last 18 months for juniors, right? The commodity prices, well, apart from precious metal, doing quite well, quite frankly. But the equities it's been a sort of risk-off environment, and this is one of desperate times, desperate measures, and quite frankly, I quite like these majors, at least putting some money on the table, or the option of some money on the table. Same in terms of these sort of, whether it be tax incentives or actual funds from these kind of on the battery metals side of things, and obviously copper falls nicely into that. I just wondered, do you feel that the sort of shape of the market is changing in terms of access to capital, alternative financing, if you want to call it that?
I mean, we've hardly met one fund once we've been here. Hardly any of the banks have been. I don't see BMO or any of these people coming to talk to us. It is the small office funds. Yeah. We had the best reception in Frankfurt. Yeah. From people we had no idea, but they were extremely knowledgeable about the market. And obviously in Germany, probably they're closer to the action than anybody in terms of battery metals.
Amazing.
But I would say that the traditional sources have moved, and the majors we've spoken to by BHP, Tech, Rio. I'm missing one here, but they have come and I have approached them, but they've actually come back and said, yes, we're quite interested in what you're looking at. And I'd imagine that, like in the old days when I was there, you start offering them some equity. And that is another source of financing, which I don't think I've seen in the last 5 or 10 years, that type of approach.
Agreed.
And and BHP actually building up their exploration team again. I mean, my job was to actually reduce the size of it. Yeah. And here we are 15 years later and they're building it up again.
Yeah. It's funny how things change. Yeah. It really is. Look, back to you, back in Tasmania. Obviously, you got some money and you got a plan for next year.
We got 2 years worth of drilling.
Right. Okay, that's where it's going.
So we got enough padding here. Yeah. But we're also cognizant that, look, if the market is shifting in a direction, we got enough people on the board here with enough experience that we can kind of get the rudder and move it in a different direction. But for now, we're focused on this part of Tasmania. Our geologists are Tasmanian. Everything that we do, we have 2 or 3 people operating in Vancouver. I'm one of them. And we have 4 or 5 geologists down. And it's a very lean and mean group. We don't have many overheads.
It's interesting. Again, I always wonder how the small companies navigate these choppy waters. And timing is everything.
Yes.
As always, timing and luck, quite frankly, more often than people realise. I suspect. For you guys, given the IOCG, given the kind of balance between all the commodities that you're seeing and the ground and the grades, quite frankly, it's not too shabby.
No,
quite frankly.
Well, 18 meters, 0.5%. It's not too bad.
Yeah, I'll take that. Definitely take that. No, that's good. And there's a few other things in there as well of note. You've got to get people to notice you, obviously, but you've also got to time this market, and you've got to spend your money at an appropriate rate. You can either turn the volume up, or you can turn it down. Your board, you're part of a quite good group. You can go and raise money if the market turns next year. Can you work quicker? Can you throw more money at this thing?
Of course we can.
The guy you were talking to, I was talking to before this, who you referenced, he's just been given a chunk of money. And the question to him was, okay, we like what you're doing, but it's all bits and pieces. What happens if we gave you a lot of money? Could you spend it? The answer was, yes, I could. I asked that question of some CEOs, and they go, well, we can only move at a certain speed. Where do you fall?
Look, what we did is we were about to gear up and have 24-hour drills At the time, we were operating with one 12-hour drill. This is exactly what we said. Hang on a minute here. Sorry, mates. We're going to have to tail it back. And so we're doing 12-hour. The deposit's not going away. What we're drilling is not going away. We spent enough on it to hold it for the next 10 years, probably.
Yeah.
So we can ratchet it up. And particularly with the other one, Skyline here, once we get the opportunity to get in there and drill it, that may end up taking a life of its own. So we've got a couple of avenues here. And, the third thing is that with 7 million, somebody said to me yesterday, 7 million, 70 million in this market. I mean, we would be opportunistic in getting involved with other companies that have a similar sort of philosophy to ourselves and moving ahead. So it's interesting. You've got to seem to be moving forward. But on the other hand, you can't be seen to be wasting the money that you have. So,
well, I think having any money and not needing to go to market for 2 years or whatever it turns out to be is rare, and it gives you options, but it also protects you. It's a defensible position. And lots of companies are cash stranded at the moment and regret not taking money sooner. So, and they don't have those options available to them. So, there are deals, but the company you said you got to take care of your own knitting first, I suspect. And get focused on that one. But look, Tasmania, now everyone knows where it is.
Do you want me to give the elevator pitch on Tasmania?
No, we know. You told us where. We're South Australia, northern New Zealand.
I'll tell you another thing, 100% renewable energy.
Okay.
Yeah, and so actually literally within 10 kilometres.
I'm assuming hydro? Is it a bit
hydro and
wind?
We got wind right next to it. In fact, it borders our property, fortunately. Yeah. And look, the energy companies have reached out to us to ask us what our demands are going to be going forward. And I said, we're a bit early here. But seriously, they export it to the main land and also the main island. So the local government as well, I'd say extremely supportive. And we were getting $70,000 per hole on this new Skyline as a rebate because they're encouraging more exploration around. So all eyes are on us right now with this one because it's the best undrilled property that they know in this part of Tasmania. So, because a little bit
they
of pressure
want you to be there.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Compared to like South America,
more than 50% of the revenue of the state is driven by mining and mining-related products.
Interesting. I expect that in the context of some of the South American social.
I know where you're going with that.
I don't want to go there. There's some great people and some great countries and some great projects, but South America has got this reputation of just being a little bit socialist and therefore slightly anti-mining and in certain jurisdictions, certain.
Look, the way I always look upon this Matt, is the world is all local. Everything is local, whether you're in the Philippines, whether you're in Chile, or whether you're in Peru. It all depends on where the project is within that country. The nice thing about parts of Australia is they have a very realistic approach and a very stable political environment. So it's not that Australia's got any better. It's just other places got a little bit more uncertain would be the word. Like, let's face it, Chile's been a darling since Pinochet. Yeah. And yet now it's hovering. I don't think anything will drastically change there. Yeah. The one difference is that in places like Chile and Peru, there's this new overtone of water stress. I mean, you look at a lot of the copper jurisdictions in the world, they all seem to be in slightly difficult areas in terms of access to water. And all of the mines in Chile have to use desalinated water, pump it uphill. Yeah. Of course, it all adds to the cost. You take a place like Tasmania, you've got 100% renewable power, you've got a government which is supportive, you've got a local workforce that is highly trained. We're also close to port. So we've got quite a few things going for us. Yes, it's over there somewhere that nobody's ever heard of. And I'm surprised they haven't because there are some large mines. But Mount Lyell has been closed for a number of years. But, today, if somebody discovered that, there'll be a huge rush going on there.
Well, I appreciate you coming into Nice Story, Steve. Good to see you over here. And best of luck. Stay in touch next year, okay?
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care.